Yeah, sure.
But then we'll stop it when people are talking a bit later, basically. So welcome to this Lightbulb Moment, which is on, and I quote, how can I influence culture as a head of HR? And Nikki, I'm really glad you do this for us because you spoke at the BP's network and you're fab. So Nikki Burslam is the founder of the Culture Club. Bio on wearethecultureclub.co.uk, which I suspect is someone written by someone who knows you well, says, quote, she has a knack for making sense of complicated things, which, sorry, let me do that again. She has a knack for making sense of complicated things, which is impressive and quietly irritating to the rest of us mere mortals. I think it's very nice. Nice. And it adds, Nikki has a phobia of fish, used to be a 10
I
pin,
do. Yeah, I do actually.
used to be a 10-pin bowler and was once given a cheque for £4.60 for outstanding academic achievement. What was
Sure,
that all
I
about?
didn't even know that was on our website. No,
Yeah.
it does actually probably summarise my life quite well.
I'd also say your posts on LinkedIn are really good. So, network members, you might well have seen them reposted in your members' LinkedIn group because it's they're always good fun and very provocative, thought provoking. So, Nikki, thank you ever so much for doing this.
No
Over to you
problem.
for a very interactive session. I think we've got breakout rooms planned. We've got some whiteboards as well. So keep your cameras on if you're able to. No worries if not. And
Yes.
Nikki, I'll be here. Let us know what you need to do. I'll mute and the floor is yours.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. Welcome. So, I think we've got just under an hour, and the plan was really to kind of keep this quite practical and really interactive. So, I've got a bit of a plan. We can stick to it, or we can just see where the conversation takes us. We'll see where we go. So, the idea really is, I think, as part of the introduction, is I kind of just want to culture such an abstract topic. And I love the fact that there's no right or wrong with anything. So I just kind of love to kind of tap into a little bit of like our collective worlds and the roles that we all have within culture in our various organizations and think about what can we all bring together and then look at really what's our role in shaping it and influencing it. I'd love to get to the end where we kind of take some really practical ideas and think about, right, what can we go and try and go and make happen. So got a bit of a structure for the session, but I'm not going to be stuck to it. So if there's something that we want to kind of dig into and explore and go off on a bit of a tangent, very welcome to do that and just let me know. In the chat, there is a link to a Miro board. Can you see what I'm sharing? Yeah, you can. Or yeah. So you can come into this board with me, and if not, I'll just use it to take a few notes and I'll share it with you afterwards. So I just want to get started, just to get to know each other a little bit with if we can go around, I'll just go around in the order of which people are on my screen with your name, role, organization, if you're happy to share, and then kind of the hat that you wear in the world of culture. So these are just some examples that you can see on the screen. You might want to choose a different hat, and I'm looking at it, it's quite small, so let me zoom in. So yes, the hat that you wear. I've put some examples on here, but it might be that you have a different hat or you might have a combination of hats. So if I go around and come to you, kind of name, role, culture hat, and then we'll get to know each other. So first on my list is Nikki B, also Nikki B.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Nikki Broadbent and I'm the head of people at St Mungo's, which is a homelessness charity based in London. I don't know, I'm looking at the culture hat. I haven't actually given any thought to this previously at all, so I'm winging it. The role that I've gone into, there is a lot of change in the organisation and there's a lot of conflicting priorities. It's that thing of priorities, plural, what actually is the priority. Everything seems to be a priority. So I'd say at the moment, I'm trying to role model good behaviour for my team in so much as, we can do what we can do and we can do that well, but ultimately we're not going to be all things to all people all the time. So actually, let's role model some good behaviour in terms of how we want to be or seen as an HR team.
That's great. Obviously, one of the most powerful things you can do as well. That's totally in your control. Thank you very much. So Neil, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Neil, head of HR for Noble Foods. I think in the culture hat, I would definitely also go with role model. I'm still new to the business, been in there 5 months, so still building trust. So I'd also say trusted advisor as well, and then a little bit of policy making as well.
Awesome.
Sorry, I took up several bits of the hat there.
Well, quite often you wear more than one hat, which is kind of the point actually. So I need some more emojis on there for sure. Katie, coming next to you.
Good morning, I'm Katie Burgess. I am, it's a bit of a lengthy one, Senior Director, People and Culture Business Partner for Vantage Data Centres. Essentially, I'm an senior HR business partner. What would I be? I'd like to think a bit of everything, to be honest. at different points in time. Vantage has gone through a huge growth journey, and it's stalled a bit this year, and culture I don't think has really been focused on, but they are starting to, now that they're sort of growing and pausing a little bit, we're starting to focus on it a bit more. So, and it's something that I can't sort of, this is a really interesting session because I always find culture quite tricky. So I think maybe if I'm leaning towards one, it's trusted advisor, hopefully role model as well.
And hopefully, we'll get to grips with culture a little bit. That's the next bit of what is it? So big question for everyone. Maybe we'll break it down a little bit. Faye, you are next on my screen. We're actually just doing some introductions at the moment. If you're happy to jump in, name, role, and then we're kind of talking about what kind of hat you wear in the world of culture in your organisation. Okay, and you can do one on here or any hat that you like, really.
Okay, apologies for coming in a few minutes late.
That's right.
My name is Faye Cochrane. I am a people partner at Manchester Airport Group, which is London's Stansted Airport for me, which is where I'm based. My culture hat, gosh, I think I probably wear them all. To a certain extent. So I'm a people, as I said, I'm a people partner. I'm also the chair of Embrace, which is our race and ethnicity colleague community network. And I'm also supporting a project for the whole company, which is about looking at our current culture and how we improve that, which is also linked to our EVP and areas like that. So I also get involved in recruitment and reorgs and all of those things. So
like world domination for you then, essentially.
Yeah, I'm always late for meetings. Sorry.
Sophie, I've got you next.
Hi everyone, so my name's Sophie. I am the head of people partnering at the Ned, which is a hotel and group of restaurants. So we're based in the City of London, which is really exciting. It's great. I've been here actually just a couple of days and 1 year anniversary, so big milestone. But I think it's interesting. What some people have said already. I think having been newer to the business, I've probably focused more on especially establishing those relationships and being that trusted advisor, and trying to be a role model for good behaviours and maybe looking at some of our policies and etc. But I think looking ahead into next year, similar to what Faye just said, we are going to go through quite a big transformation in terms of our culture and values. So I think my hat will then sort of switch more into being a culture builder, visionary, and try and implement change ultimately. So a mix.
Awesome. I love the Ned as well. It's one of my favourite bars to go to.
Right.
Lisa, coming over to you.
Hi. So Lisa Brennan. I am head of HR operations and talent at Key Insurance. And goodness, culture change hat. I feel like that's a daily occurrence, probably like most of you. I think for us, a lot of it at the moment has been establishing kind of what our approach and kind of policies are around about that, because we have just kind of become a standalone business this year. So that, and couple with I suppose just managing the change as it's kind of happening, so that kind of dual hat of building your policies while you're actually putting it into practice, and trying to model some of that for the rest of the business. So
Awesome. And I've got Angela. I know you're changing devices, so if you're ready, great, and if not, we can kind of loop back to you once you are ready. Are you it looks like you're driving. Are you driving? Are you walking?
I'm still on my phone. I haven't managed to change device. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I lead people business partnering and people operations at JC&Co, which is an outdoor advertising company. I probably wear most of those hats, but we have had quite a big focus on culture building in the last few years. Some of which means putting in place policies and processes that are going to enable that, and performance development, investing in L&D, etc. So it's been a positive journey of lots of improvements and ways in which I'm now maintaining rather than just building.
Awesome. Great, so quite the variety, and I think it's all clear. Kind of, I just wanted to get the point. Really, culture. We all wear so many different hats, and I think in HR you've got quite a unique position where you can really directly influence it in some ways, and then kind of role model it and kind of influence it. So we're gonna talk about the different levels of influence today. Next, I want to get to, because culture is obviously quite a big topic, and it's not, there is no right definition in my mind. I don't even know how to define it because it's just so many different things in so many different places. But I just want to do a little bit of an activity on kind of what we all think it is and how it all shows up for all of us. So I don't know, let me post the link into the mirror board. We can do this in a few different ways. If you can get into the board, you're very welcome to kind of come and take a post-it note and type it in there. Or we can use the chat, or we can just dive into the conversation. So I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes to think about. It's like a word association game. So when you think about culture, what comes to your mind? Now, just to reiterate, there are no right or wrong answers. Let me just unlock this board a little bit because I've probably broken it. Yes, no right or wrong answers. Take a couple of minutes to think about it, come up with your words, and you can either put them in the chat. I will sort this board out so it actually works, or we can kind of have a bit of a chat. So give you 2 minutes to think about it. Think of as many things as you can. This is about volume rather than like perfect articulation. And let's kind of see how bored we can get. There we go. See a few people in there.
Oh, this is new to me. How do we?
So you can either use the Miro board. There's a link here, and I will just try and get some little post-it notes together. Let me try. So I think I'm locked out of my own board. Here we go. There we go. Or if not, we can use the chat in the meeting here. So if you can't get in. That's my dog joining in as well. So Basil always decides to bark at the quiet moments.
There's some really good ones here.
There are. So quite the I love seeing the variety as well. So Faye, I'm just looking at yours as well. And Lisa, what colleagues say and do in real life and things what culture? So yes, we've got things like workplace norms, we've got change, that's a constant thing I think that comes up nowadays. We have how we think, how we do things, how we challenge each other, how it feels, leadership, how decisions are made, how people collaborate, how people feel about coming into work. We've got psychological safety, how inclusive it really is, core beliefs and values, ways of doing things, living and breathing behaviour, sense of belonging, business identity. This is all really great. So yeah, and all of these things are actually quite tangible if you think about it. Well, so I guess the feeling stuff is a bit more intangible, but actually, how you do things and, how people show up, how you talk to each other, all those kind of things are kind of more tangible. It's nice to see the variety of things coming up because this is good. What else have we got? How we support our colleagues, i.e. working hours, flexibility. But yeah, so Faye, going into a bit more of the kind of actually policies and kind of ways of working there as well, which I think is really great. Role modelling behaviours, very good. We've got more coming out. Set from the top. I'm going to throw a rogue question out there. Is there anything that you would say culture is not in your organisation? And you can just talk about that or put it in the chat if you want, because I haven't got space on my memo board. But if there's anything that what is there anything that culture isn't in your minds, just to get a bit of is there anything out of scope for this conversation, really?
Pay.
Say pay.
Yeah.
Does anyone agree with that? Disagree?
I mean, I feel like if you pay people very poorly, or if you have like 0-hour contracts, if you don't pay or compensate or give flexibility for things like carers leave, that can have an impact.
Yeah, I think the carers leave is a good point, like in terms of like policies and pay to be in line with market and to support sort of, you know, family friendly, and that's definitely within culture. But I'm thinking sort of, I don't know, yeah, base pay. I don't know whether, if maybe 0 hours contract, yes, I could see that point, but actually, yeah, I don't know whether pay for me would fall into culture. Not sure.
Or maybe the culture like defines or helps influence elements of pay potentially. Maybe it's a separate influence.
Yeah, I guess if you're in an organisation which is sort of high stress, high reward, that's
and it's always something like, if you look at, like, you kind of go to the EVP space there, don't you? Because you could have someone, I always think, like, go to the extremes with someone like Goldman Sachs or something, where you know, high burnout culture, but very well rewarded.
paid. Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's part of that. And they're very transparent about that's what you're kind of getting yourself into as well.
You might not live to spend the money, but
yep, there's
live long enough, I should say. Sorry, that's a bit.
I want to call out the culture isn't what SLTs say it is. That's quite an interesting comment, and I like it. Who said it? Nikki, can you explain?
That was me.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the SLT will have a very clear idea of what they want the culture to be. So they will say that is what the culture is, but that does not mean that is the culture that you have in that particular organisation. So I think actually there's a number of ways that you can be realistic about where you are at the moment and maybe where you want to get to. But I think that they're having those kind of realistic, kind of open, challenging conversations around what the culture is very different to an aspirational, we have this kind of culture, aren't you really great to be coming to work for us, and we'll write all this amazing stuff on our recruitment pages, and this is who we say we are, but the reality is very different.
Yeah, okay. And then what about, just to throw kind of a question to it, if you are looking at a culture change, because that's what I see a lot of our organisations kind of going for at the moment. Last year I saw a lot of like, let's just do complete different strategies because the world's a different place. And this year it seems to be all about culture kind of catching up with that. Do you think the SLT have a role in defining what the culture should be? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, you know, the questions about who, and I used it earlier when talking about how we want to be seen as an HR team. So, you know, kind of how is it that we want to be defined, and how do we want to be seen and talked about, and what are our strengths as an organisation, and where do we want to get to, is a conversation I think the SLT need to have a really clear kind of principle agreed on between them. Actually, if you've got two SLT members who are kind of going down this road, this is who we want to be, and this is our values, and these are our core beliefs, and you've got another two thinking something else and another two thinking something else, that lack of cohesion is going to mean that actually the culture in that organisation is probably as confusing as the SLT are. So I think there does need to be an agreement, but I do think that often organisations will try to run before they can walk, and actually they're so disconnected with what people on the ground are feeling, thinking, experiencing, but actually a kind of blind, you know, kind of acceptance of, well, we say it is that we are great and we say that we do all these things and this is who we are, but the reality can be very different. But that doesn't mean I don't think they can have an influence on it.
Yeah. Anybody would add to that? Disagree, agree, build? I saw lots of nodding heads.
I think measuring the culture as well. So absolutely agree with everything that you just said. And we have been going through some of that with the SLT and trying to get them all on a page to kind of agree collectively, so that we can kind of make sure that we all know what it is that we want to be working to. But I think taking that step before as well, how do we measure what the culture is now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
To know
and
where we
just
want to get
kind of,
to.
yeah, and do you measure culture, Faye, where you are, and like, how do you do that?
So we last October we brought a company called Care Us in, and they carried out a review, and they had a number of different sessions, and they met with women, they met with different minority groups also, and they met with them separately to kind of build that psychological safety. And then we collected that data and we played that back to the SLT, and that has now driven kind of some of where it is that we want to go, along with other Your Voice surveys, some around kind of sickness, different exit surveys, those types of points, so that we've got one big, this is actually what we think our culture is now.
Yes. And I've just got a couple of out of interest. Like, how many of you have like an articulation of what your culture is? I guess EVP is like an example of that, isn't it? Really, but does anybody have like a really clear description of an organisation of what your culture is that you communicate? I see some shaking heads.
We don't, and that's a journey that we want to go on into
Yeah.
next year. It's something that we need. We've actually grown as a brand as well, so yeah, we need this. So
it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's like, if you look at all of these, what is culture? How do you describe that many things in kind of a really kind of articulate way? So I was just wondering if anybody had that and were kind of willing to share kind of the process that they've gone through, really, because it's yeah, a lot to pack in for people. Cool. All right. I think we're going to move into how do we actually start influencing culture now. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to pick one of these one by one, and then I'd like you to shout out to me or put in the chat whether in your role currently you think you directly, indirectly, or kind of have to shape it through influence. So this is just kind of thinking about in the roles that we sit in our organizations, what is it that we can actually have direct influence over by kind of in our role, actually, you know, I'm going to shape a new policy to do this, for example, might be a direct influence in the HR space. Indirect might be I'm going to be a business partner with a leader and I can shape the way that they show up with their teams. Shaped by influence is kind of even one more step removed, where you can't really control it, but actually by stealth mode, we might be able to shape it somehow through how people think. So some of these are going to be more obvious than others, but we'll do them and we'll start to get a bit of an idea of like, what is our scope of influence? And then we're going to look at actually, is there something that we actually want to think about how we can do that? So, sorry if you can hear my dog. Let's look at core beliefs and values. Where would we put this one? Direct, indirect, or shaped by influence? Who's going to go first? Sophie, I can see you pondering.
I'm like, oh God, well, I didn't know if we needed to shout for our own post-it notes. Really difficult. Maybe direct, maybe. But I think also, yeah, I think it's a collective. Yeah, I don't know.
And it could be that we can get into a little bit of like, actually, does the HR play a really direct role in kind of shape, like driving, if you're going to go through like a values project, for example, or defining your core values as an organization, is it more likely to be instigated by HR? I guess is an opportunity, and then shaped by other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Instigated by HR,
I agree
but
with that.
yeah, shaped.
So we'll put like instigators. There we go. Okay, next one. The personality of the organization, the norms and the practices.
I think when I heard practices, I thought of sort of in terms of shaping policies and some practices that support some of the values that you want as an organization. We can have a direct influence of, but an indirect influence of, oh no, you've made it the norms. Is that, oh, even with my glasses, I can't read
Sorry,
it.
that is the norm. The norms and practices, I think, yeah, are slightly
Yes.
different. I've just called out policies as being maybe a bit more direct, but actually,
Yeah.
let me make this bigger for everyone. And actually, like the
Thank you.
personality maybe is the bit that indirect, or even maybe on the cusp of like influence as
Shaped by
well.
influence, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, in the middle of the two.
Okay. Ways of working.
Indirect. I think we partner with people in the business, and we, obviously we want to role model, but ultimately we need to try and partner with and influence like leadership or, relevant key stakeholders to also work in this way, right?
Anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Don't want to spark any fights or anything, but ways of doing things, I think, that's quite similar. Should we bunch those together? Probably the ways of working feels like quite a similar theme. And I'm trying to think where we do have similarities. How colleagues feel about coming to work.
Indirect. Yeah.
Indirect.
And influence. Yeah.
Shaped by influence, I was going to say, but
On the border.
Yeah, because I feel like actually that's quite a hard thing to get your hands around, isn't it, really? Environment. Is that quite similar to either ways of working or how people feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continuously shifting culture. This is an interesting one.
So I actually wrote this post-it note, but I was actually thinking more about external factors, so things that might be going on, in the wider market, I don't know, as an example, or the news, or etc. So things that are outside of our control and how we need to, move and adapt with that. So that was what I was thinking when I wrote that note.
So we would put that in the outside circle. So I guess you're responding or adapting to the world around you, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. An aspiration for where companies want to go. I guess I can come to the person who wrote it, and then you can tell me where it wants to go, actually.
Don't come to me. I have no idea. That wasn't me who wrote that one. That's good.
Who wrote this one? Aspiration for where companies want to go. Was it?
I think it might have been me, actually. Yeah. I think from a HR perspective, I think that's indirect because you'd be working through the senior leaders to try and set that template of where the business wants to go, and then trying to get them to cascade that message down. But equally, there's a certain level of direct involved with all of these because you put policies and processes that sit underneath as well. But for this conversation, I'd probably say indirect.
Yeah, and I guess in the role and the kind of strategic position that you have as well, you do have an indirect influence over that. I want to call out the misunderstood, because I do agree that culture is misunderstood by definition. And actually, if we want to then help people understand it, if we flip it around that way, or our influence over the misunderstanding of culture, where would we sit? Whose is this one?
So I wrote that one. I put misunderstood there because I think I started off by just putting down the first words that came in my mind when I thought about culture. And for me, misunderstood. So then if I flip it and say, well, from a HR perspective, as someone who's trying to have direct, indirect, or shaped by influence, where would I put it? Then obviously, like you say, it's better flipping it to helping people to understand it. So again, I think there is, I'll put this one more in the direct space because I think we have to be at the beginning of that journey in some way. And then I think we end up moving into maybe some of the other parts of that journey indirect and whatever. So I think helping people understand it, I think that sits with direct.
Everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. So I'm just reading the chat as we go through as well, make sure we get everything done. So we've got change.
I wish I hadn't put so much in.
Oh God, I'm picking on you. All the ones that are standing out. Sorry, Neil. I'll give you a break in a minute. I'm going to choose a non-purple post-it in a minute because I think that might be the sign.
It'd be good to hear. It'd be good, like I said, I started off with thinking what the words that come on my head, and then went back round trying to build them back up. I didn't get to this one, so it'd be interesting to see what other people think.
All right, I'll throw this one out of the room, just
and then I'll give my view.
Spotlight off. Then I'm going to go to a different colour post-it note, I promise. So, change for the group. I guess there's a lot of stuff packed into this. So, yeah.
Did you? I guess just to direct the question back, was it change from a perspective of like the culture needs to continuously change, or change that impacts the culture, or?
I'll tell you where I was coming from, because it links to something else I put there about it being fluid. I don't think culture is a static thing. I think you can take a snapshot of it in time, but I think it's always moving. So that's where I sort of put it. Change. Plus, there's another element where when people talk about any kind of change in the business as well, we tend to think of culture. The culture is going to change because we're changing something. So even if it's an acquisition, there's always an implication on the culture as well. So I think culture and change are intrinsically linked on several different levels, basically. But obviously, thinking about it in isolation of how it links into culture and then trying to say how we influence it, I think is a little bit harder. But hopefully that gives a bit of context of what was in my head at the time, is that I think change and culture are always quite closely linked. People always associate one with the other, in my view.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think so as an agency or consultancy, we specialize in like business change, but it all comes back to culture, because you can't change anything without people is kind of culture. So totally get where you're coming from. If say you were going through like we just talked about external factors, say something's happened, you're like, right, we're going through this big culture change, and you were called to the table as being part of that team, how direct is your influence on that? Yeah, direct. Yeah. Can I see some thumbs up, nodding heads, or disagreements from the room? Yeah, cool. And I might assume that it's your fluid way of doing things, also yours, so I can group them together. Not group you again. I'm going to move those both to direct. Cool. Okay, right. I'm going to go for a different colour post-it note just in case I accidentally pick on you again. So, how decisions are made and how people collaborate. Whose is this one? Please don't say, Neil, you switched to a yellow one for this one.
No, that was me, I think. I think, if you are directly influencing the culture, you might have, specific ways that decisions are made. Are you including people in the way that an organisation makes strategic decisions and what that strategy will look like, for example, and how collaborative is that? So I'm thinking that ultimately, if you have an organisation with a, very top-down culture, and actually it's very driven by other people, and actually, it's not particularly collaborative, how those decisions are made about what you're going to be as an organisation will be very direct.
Yeah.
I think the flip side again with that is that if you are deciding that actually you're going to be super collaborative and you are going to be shaped by influence, and there are going to be those influential people which are driving forward how you're going to make those decisions. I suppose it's kind of which comes first.
Yeah.
Are you designing the culture, or are you responding to what has organically grown as a culture and then kind of fitting decision making around that?
And I guess there is no right or wrong direction for that to happen, right? So I guess it can flip between the two. Should we kind of put that in between, somewhere between direct and indirect?
Yeah.
You do have an element of influence over it for sure. You don't have to do that kind of high influence, but somewhere in between. I think how we do things and how we challenge each other, is that similar to what we've just spoken about? Was that yours as well, Nikki, or was that somebody else's?
It was, yeah. And I also did the kind of norms and practices and personalities of it, and ultimately I think that's they've ended up in kind of similar places, so I'd link it to that one.
I'm spotting the patterns of the size of the post-it notes and the colours now, so
yeah, it's just preset. I think it just tells you how big, or because mine were huge, so I felt like I was
they were. I mean, that's a big influence. Cool. Right, so who's in pink? I'm going to come to a different person now. Who is, I'm guessing these two are the same, so set from the top, or behaviours and how we treat each other.
That's me. Behaviours and how we treat each other, I think, could be indirect and shaped by influence. Although we could have some, in my previous organisation, we had sort of defined behaviours, in which case actually it could sit in all of them in theory, if you're sort of embarking on defining new behaviours and how we're measuring the how as well as the what. I think we could have direct influence over that, but generally on a day-to-day basis, how we treat each other, behaviours and holding other people to account on that is indirect and shaped by influence.
Yeah, I'm just going to call that kind of defining. So I guess when you get to the kind of like defining culture, defining values, defining behaviours, actually HR is a really pivotal role, isn't it? And then when it gets to kind of how you activate that, you have less control on how other people show up, I guess. So,
and step from the top, shaped by influence, I think.
Yeah. And is that with influencing, kind of partnering with leaders and that kind of thing? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
How does everybody find that in their role? Do you
hard.
partner with hard? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes depends who the person is.
I
I mean, it's
was going
very
to say
varied,
exactly
isn't
the
it?
same thing. I was going to say the same thing. A lot of it, you can have a different experience with different people in the same business, and then a completely different experience altogether again if you move businesses.
Yeah. We had in my previous organisation, we had a new CEO join, and he was very for sort of family friendly, bringing yourself to work, very sort of human and authentic, and you could see that in everything he did, like as CEO of a massive organisation, and he would tell us about going to Taylor Swift with his children and being a Swiftie fan, and he took the day off to spend with his children. It's like, this is the CEO of a huge company, and he's telling us that he's just been to do you know what I mean? It's just in the little things that they did, is sharing about who they are as people, and so it wasn't just something written down. It was
Authenticity.
but it was from the top, and then if you write something down and you can see your leaders not demonstrating that, then it's not worth the
We
paper it's written
recently
on.
had somebody join our team and they said, oh, it really is flexible working here. You do work from home 2 days a week. And they said there are so many companies that just obviously put that as standard on their adverts. Then when they actually join a company now, they're not like that at all.
Yeah. I'm interested on the CEO topic just for a second, and how much that can either help you or not help you in your role of like culture shapers, because we just had a really good example of like a really kind of great endorser, or like a CEO who just makes your life easy in that respect, because they kind of just champion it and get it. Just from your kind of experiences, have you ever had like the opposite of that, and how influential has a CEO been in the organizations that you've worked in to either help or really be like a bit of an uphill struggle with culture? And Neil, you got your hand up, so I'll come to you.
Yeah, I think the way I've experienced this is where the words and the actions don't match. So I've had a CEO who talks very much about team, family feel. But then if I give some clear examples, it was a retail organisation, would do store visits, and either intentionally or more likely unintentionally belittle people who were levels below. In obvious ways which might in the 1980s be seen as acceptable, language and behaviour, but definitely, has long been left behind. Also, not really giving HR much of a seat at the table. So again, when the HRD was trying to land something, or just overspoken in the room. So on the one hand, on a public forum, it was all very much, you're about people. People is very important. But when we were trying to get anything landed from a people perspective, there was just an obvious mismatch in that. And that culture was very much led from the CEO's view of the HR importance in the organisation. Just didn't see the function as having real value around the table. And then that just transpired out in pretty much everything we tried to land. Senior leaders would agree to things, and then when we would try and hold them accountable for it, they would just blatantly not do it. And then, there was no follow-up from the CEO. So it was always like HR function, almost, trying to use that influence and the relationships that you've built to try and get things done from a bottom-up approach rather than. And I just remembered a statement actually when we were talking about trying to drive the DE&I agenda further. The CFO actually went on record to say that shouldn't be driven from the top down. It needs to be driven from the bottom up. So almost suggesting that, our least experienced and lowest paid colleagues are the ones that should almost take ownership and influence for something which has got such a big impact on the culture of the organisation. And I think that was just another form of abdication.
I think you're right. I think whilst on a conversation yesterday, and they were talking about how like a top-down approach to things has just become a really like dirty word or approach. But actually, I think there's some things that should be leader-led, and whether you call that top-down or not, I think is up for debate. But when it comes to like setting the tone or like saying, you know, the world around us is changing, back to that kind of continuous shift, people in the front line doing the job might not see the need to do that. So actually, I think there are some things that are totally, you know, CEO, senior leader led, and actually HR. You know, if you look at this wheel of influence, what I'm saying is it's HR very influential in shaping culture. So actually, it's like, how do you use that influence? There's nothing really out of influence that we can't shape, at least somehow. So I think just being really confident in that, because look how much influence you can have over how a whole organization works and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really great, and getting the buy-in from a CEO. And I've seen CEOs who like believers and non-believers, and how difficult it can make your jobs and your world essentially. So, but if you just, I think this is a really good snapshot of how much influence you do have. I'm going to move on in a second, but I've just got a couple of all these purple ones. Neil, are these all yours on the left hand side here? Just
you can't blame me for. You cannot blame me for all of them. Some of them are mine. Workplace norms, yes. Emotional states of business, yes. Collective leadership behaviours, yes. How it actually they pretty are all mine.
Bottom one was mine. I'll take that one.
Sorry.
Yeah. I think down to how it feels to work somewhere, I think that was mine. I think the last two are not mine.
So we've got the living and breathing behaviour, sense of connection, belonging, and business identity. Who
that was me.
Right,
yeah,
Sophie.
And probably quite connected to like the environment, how colleagues feel about coming into work. I don't know. I don't think it's only just shaped by the influence. I think it's indirect, but I just think it really, really impacts the way that people show up to work.
Yeah. And I guess there's so many different ways to do that, isn't there? Whether it's like all the different kind of hard wiring, soft wiring culture into there's just so many ways and levers to pull on, I guess, for that one.
Yeah.
How people act when no one else is watching is a good one. I like that. Whose is that? Is that Neil again?
No,
it may well be Faye,
not.
because she's just stepped out. So I'll take the credit because she's not around to.
But I think this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I mean, this one is like, how do you? I mean, it's really hard to influence that, but it's probably the thing that really determines how culture is tolerated, I guess. So I think it's a really important one to kind of think about how we, by influence, can kind of shape that. Cool. All right, I think these two are quite similar. So the collective leadership behaviours, we'll do this up here, and then how it feels to work somewhere. I think we've got a lot of that. Is kind of on this bit, isn't it? So the environment and things like that. So lots of influence to be had. Quite keen to get a bit of a view on like where you see the biggest opportunity in your world at the moment. So I want to make sure this is kind of practical and relevant to you. Hopefully get some things to kind of take away. So if you look at this board and think about kind of the context of the role that you're in, is there something that's very topical for you at the moment, or is there something that you think, right, I'd love to just spend the next 10 minutes thinking about, can we try and crack this together and think about something that we could maybe get some brains around a challenge together. So just take a minute to look at the board, and then just kind of call out either just on the chat or kind of shout out something that you think is an opportunity that you'd like to focus on. We can probably get to 2 or 3 and we can cover those off, and we can either go into little breakout groups or solve it together, and we'll get into some practical things that we can go off and do together.
Nikki, you're into the last 15, so I'm just wondering whether, because you had a great question, which I think you've effectively asked in some ways anyway, which is, what's one small intervention you could test in the next 3 months?
Exactly, yeah. So I think if we can highlight something like a priority to say, actually, I want to focus on influencing our top leaders, we can take that and then look at an intervention that we can shape out. So yeah, just get something that is like on your mind or topical, or something that you're going through right now, and then we'll take into turning it into action for sure.
Yeah, and maybe keeping the group, maybe.
Yeah, let's keep it in the group. Yeah. Okay, we've got measure culture. I love that one. Got a thumbs up for measure. Getting leaders aligned. So I guess that's in the defining culture space, isn't it, that one? I don't know if Katie and Sophie, we can combine your two a little bit on kind of the aligned culture direction and business direction, whether they do go in partnership or whether we can kind of think about similar tactics for those. Share more about their experiences. A personal way to engage more directly with their teams. Okay, shall we take the ones that have been first put into the chat? Just in the interest of time. So we'll keep it in the group just because it's quite a small thing of us. We'll try and I'm going to try and group some of these together. So we'll do measurement, defining, and then the communicating with clarity. So I think we can build in the sharing experiences and perspectives into that one. So if we go up with the measurement one, so what I really want to try and get to is what I want to do, how I'll do it, and then the first step that you can take. So I will just fill the board in and we'll just have a conversation. Don't get too distracted by the mirror board. So if our first one is about I want to be able to measure culture, big question to tackle in 5 minutes. But Neil, something, if you get more specific around the measurement side, is there a specific thing, like could you currently measure anything? And is there something that you would like to really kind of think is something shifting? Like, can we narrow it down a little bit first? And I'm very happy to contact you after this because I've got lots of ideas.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I'm coming from with it. I heard
Yep.
Someone in here talk about using an external firm to measure the current culture. We, at the moment, are currently talking about health and safety. We've had a couple of accidents, and we're talking about where do we think we are from a health and safety culture. And I think that's one strand of a bigger culture piece. So for me, I think it would be important to have a definitive measure of what culture is, even though I think it is fluid and changes and feels different for most people. But I think it needs an organisational definition, and then you can use that as a building block to make adjustments as you go along. So it's not, I think it would be great to have an idea of how we could influence a business, maybe to look at doing a culture review, culture survey, something like that, which would help us then set that future direction of the culture going forward, rather than the risk I think at the moment is picking individual things and thinking that they're the culture.
Yep. Okay.
So that might be a bit too big for the time that we've got left. But definitely, if someone could just give me a view on who they've used and things like that, that might be useful for me as an individual, and we could look at something else maybe for the remainder of the call.
So I think this might link into the next bit, because what I think, to be able to do what you want to do, you need to define what culture is in your view anyway, to then be able to kind of survey it or track it. One of the next things was around kind of aligning on what culture is, maybe kind of in the definition space. So but I think you're right with the measuring current culture. My advice would be try and, so there is no like one way of saying this is what culture is. I think if it's me kind of sticking it, I'd look at kind of what's our business strategy, what are the kind of things that we need to be doing, and your point around the health and safety kind of numbers are a really important one, because if that's a really important metric for you and you're seeing things crop up, I would kind of use that as kind of a way of measuring something. But you just ladder it back up to, actually that might be the link to health and safety, is that, you know, you've got psychological safety linked to the fact that people don't feel safe to do certain things, or, you know, so I think look for the problem spots and try and kind of track it back to kind of, if you flip those around into what does good look like then, and then try and measure it. So I think there's ways of doing it. I'm also going to make a note of these, and I spend a lot of time thinking about measurements, so I'll follow up with you afterwards as well, for sure, because there's so many different things that you could do. Just for, has anyone, we'll go around the room, has anyone used like a good kind of survey tool, whether it's a provider, a system, a process that can help Neil with good practice that you've used before that's worked for you?
Not necessarily specific to culture, but we've just run a recent engagement survey using our new internal comms platform, which is Vivo, and then actually ran quite a lot. We've like segregated some of the data and actually ran some of it through Copilot and AI, just to get some of the sentiment analysis, and it's been fascinating, some of the things it's pulled out. And obviously, you know, there's only so much you can do with that, and we did it like a very high level, but it was a good start for us, and I think on the back of that it's going to encourage us to do more pulse surveys. with our team members, so to do these like shorter, brief, quick check-ins just to assess rather than these big, annual surveys essentially, where you only measure that maybe once a year.
There's a very good point where actually that one snapshot in time, that some people just do it like once every like 2 years, don't they? And it's like, well, I don't know how useful that is for you. So maybe Neil, thinking about, is there like a more regular way of tracking it as well? Cool. Okay, let's go on to, so I'm sorry we're rushing this a little bit, but the next one was around aligning leaders. This is from you, Katie, and for a combination of Sophie as well, with aligning on what leaders want the culture to be and communicate the kind of clear direction. Does that come from a specific need that you're going through at the moment? And could you just shed a bit more light, Katie, first?
Yeah, I think I don't think there is a defined culture where I work at the moment. I think leaders lead very differently and not consistently with each other, which creates just a bit of a confusing culture, to be honest. Yeah. I don't think they've ever really given it any thought. It's been high growth mode for quite some time, so it's been sort of running to try and keep up. And so, not having the privilege or luxury to think about things like culture, and it's actually more practical things. But as such, I think some bad behaviours have crept in with certain people, and tolerated because they're technical experts.
Yes. Yeah. And do you think you have the opportunity to kind of get your leaders together to have like a bit of a kind of intervention to align them?
Yeah, possibly. We're looking at what we can do in that space. Now, actually, I just think I think some leaders will be more receptive to it. Others will be like, "This is a bit namby-pamby. We just need to get the job done."
Yes.
that will be the difficult part.
And I think that is a very valid point. And I think going into the space where so sometimes we deliberately not use the word culture, because you do get the, I'm not, this is namby-pamby, fluffy, however you want to describe it. But I think there are some ways of making this very linked. You saying you've got like a high growth mode, and actually what's it going to take to get us to grow? Don't use the word culture necessarily. You can be the judge of whether that's a good idea or not. I don't know if you've seen something called like a culture canvas that just takes this into I'll share Richard, if I share your link with you afterwards, can you share it with the group? And so essentially we've got a few of our own, but they're widely available on the internet, like strategy canvases, where you can put in the middle like your ambition is go for high growth, and it breaks it out into things like what are the behaviors we want to reward, what are the behaviors that will punish, how do we want to make decisions, and it makes it into these very tangible, practical things that you're kind of picking culture apart and saying, actually, this is how we're going to show up in a meeting. And you get all these rules, like, actually meetings are no more than 30 minutes. And it gets so like, actually, this is the thing that's going to speed us up in terms of working. And actually, if you get leaders in a room, or even get them to do it individually and then bring them together and say, this is what we're all agreeing to, then you've all of a sudden got this quite like written down set of rules that you're going to live by. And it's not fluffy and it's not any of this stuff, but it is, the important bit is the alignment stuff. And comes back to, I think someone said about like, what are you willing to tolerate or not? It gets into those kind of conversations, and we've done a few of those recently. And the more practical you've got, there was a really good one that kind of showed like our principles and then the behavior shifts. Then it's got all of the tools that you use as an organization as well. So some of it had like a decision-making framework, some of it had like how we have feedback conversations, and you ladder it all up to the culture that you need essentially to perform well. So I think the link it to performance, but if you can get like people in a room, or even you have one-to-one conversations, the alignment is really important. So like all being signed off on one version of the truth is right. But yeah, I just wondered if you have the opportunity to get people together, and get them to see the need for it as well, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to see. She's talking to someone. I'll wait for Sophie. The final thing was around storytelling a little bit, wasn't it, or communication? So, Angela, I don't know if you're still on the call or not. So this is getting individual leaders to share more about their experiences and perspectives. Not sure if we're on that one. might be on a different. That's okay. I'll say so. If you're coming back, that's right. We can come back to you. Just on we covered off the culture element, but not so much the kind of business direction bit. So if you add a bit of colour for the last few minutes that we've got left.
Yeah, actually we're in a really similar space to where Katie's sitting at the moment. But I think, we're in a place where our culture and our values are outdated, and as a response to that, our culture is probably not where it needs to be. And I think we're really about to embark on, big period of change. But I think until we until we know what the business direction is, and there's quite a few bigger, wider conversations that are happening in terms of our ownership and etc. I think until that's really outlined and outlaid, which is all coming to a head, hopefully, and this back end of the year, then it'll really set the tone for next year. And what it is, whether we embark on a global program, as a site-specific programs, what is the change process that we look at? But I think certainly one of the challenges that we have is psychological safety as well. And I think it's sort of what we talked about with leadership before. I think leadership talk about, the things that they want to instill, but it's just actually putting the actions in place. So as opposed to just talking about it, how we actually living and breathing and really delivering what it is that we say that we want to be. And that's certainly one of the challenges that we have. So it's a big journey we're going to go on.
Yes, and I think just on your point, because I'm thinking the timing is very, very key with these things. And actually, I think for culture doesn't exist in a bubble, and it's always the partner in crime to strategy. So I think waiting for that strategic review and getting the direction, I'd say, is 100% the right thing to do. I just, on your point around psychological safety, I think that's something that's going to be a really key thing for change. So you don't necessarily have to wait to start thinking about, actually, is there something you can start looking at to make sure people feel safe and, going through change? Do people feel supported? Do you have the right kind of leadership skills, and do you have the right kind of comms channel set up for people to feel like they can ask questions, challenge things, feel like they're informed? So I think there's probably some things you could do to pave the way for what's coming up, because I think it's going to be one of your enablers, really, of. And you don't have to wait for that, because I think you don't even have to call it anything. You can just go kind of are you coaching managers? Are you making sure that even leaders and managers are already being prepared to the fact that, we're going to be going through some change, and making sure they feel they can create a psychologically safe environment. And maybe there's a bit of skill building that you can do with them, or even getting a bit of a sense check on how, what is your levels of psychological safety at the moment. So I think, I wouldn't wait to do that, because I think that's something that you can do straight away. Right, that takes us right to 12 o'clock, and I'm sorry the last bit was a rush, and it always is, but I have got a box of tricks with things that I can share. I'll share them with Richard, and he can share them outwards with, whether it's links to canvases, or we've got some stuff on psychological safety, things like that. I'll just make sure, give me a kind of the day to get some relevant stuff together, and then obviously happy to chat if you want to have any other bits that we run out of time for. Happy to have a bit of a quick call to go through stuff.
Brilliant, Nikki. Thank you. Okay. Really appreciate that. I love the way you facilitate these. Lovely to see everyone. Thanks for your input. That was really excellent.
Yes, it was really good. A light bulb for me as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Nikki. Lovely to see you all. Nikki,
thank you.
Thanks all. Good to see you.
See you later. Bye.
Good on you.
All right.
I love working with you. It's great. You make it such fun. It's
yes. Well, it should be fun. It should be fun. Yeah, they're good. You know what? It's just you can build. So there is a way of building it into teams, but I was back to back, so I didn't get time to do it. But yeah, they're quite good to kind of just capture us afterwards as a bit of a note taker. We could share it. I don't know if that would be helpful. What I might do is just put some resources either on here or share them with you. Whatever's easiest, really. But
put them to me if that's all right for you, and because I can put it on the LinkedIn group for the members then, and then they can go to your website.
Yes. Exactly. Well. Yes. Just give me. I'm on course for the rest of the day, but I'll get some stuff together. Hopefully tonight, if not tomorrow morning.
Oh, tomorrow's fine, of course. Yeah, no problem at all. It's really nice of you, Nikki. I'll have a word with Neil, see if I can connect you to him as well. Thank you for doing that so well. I think you got everyone talking so well. It was brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's a nice group. I think it's such a topical topic that I think people have a lot to say about it. So it's relevant to everyone, isn't it?
It sure is. Thanks for doing so well.
All right then. No, it's good to see you. I'll speak to you again. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye, Nikki. Bye. Thanks again.